Hello ladies and gents, this is Becky Johnson with Sweetheart Quilt Design Company, and today we are going to learn how to do half square triangles. Now this is the other step in making this quilt, and I've used these half square triangles to make stripes, so you don't really notice them that much unless you vary the colors. So that will be the second step in making this. Now we need to cut 4 7/8 inch squares. To do, you have to add the 3/8 in order to do the diagonal seam. So I'm going to lay this ruler on. I've already done my cleanup cut, and I'm going to lay it at 4 7/8. So if you look at this real carefully, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then here's my 5 line. Now these little tiny lines on the ruler are your 1/8 inch marks. So 7/8 means we're only 1 away from the 5 inches. So I've got these little lines lined up right on the edge of my fabric, and I'm going to go ahead and cut strips for this. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want to work with those 1/8 inch markings. And so I'm going to give you another option in a minute, but it's good to learn how to do this because sometimes there are no other options. You have to cut with the 1/8 inches. Okay, so then we're going to take our 4 7/8 inch strip, and we're going to cut 4 7/8 inch squares. There it is. I'm trimming off the selvage edges, and you don't want these selvage edges in your quilt, even if they are printed with the design of the fabric, because they put different kinds of threads in there, so they don't react the same way as your 100% cotton fabric. And then we're again going to cut our 4 7/8. And so as I work my way along, I'm lining up at the top of the ruler and then down the edge on my 4 7/8 inch marks. Just like this. And since I left the fabric folded together, that gives us 2 at a time. Now we need to draw a diagonal line on the back of this. So let me get just a pencil here real quickly. And then most rulers have some kind of a line you can do to use this. This white line right here, it says 45 degrees. So I'm going to line up that on the edge of my fabric, and then I'm going to line up just slightly off from the points here because I want my line to go through the middle. And it doesn't always work to start right at the edge. Sometimes your fabric will bunch up on you, so I start a little in the middle. And just draw your line dark enough that you can see it when you're sewing. Now we're going to take this, I'd already pre-cut some red squares, and I'm going to line this up like this, making sure all the edges are even. And then I'm going to stitch my scant 1/4 inch on this side of the line, and I'm going to turn it around and go back the other way. Pull it out a little bit so it doesn't pucker up. Okay, cut the threads. Again, we're leaving little tails there. And then I'm going to take this and cut it in half on the line that I drew. Okay, then we head over to the ironing board here, and we want to press toward the red. So I'm setting these down. I'm going to go ahead and set the seam, and then I'm just gently pulling this back so that the seam doesn't move, and pressing that flat. You can see I'm a firm believer that your back of your quilt needs to look good in order for the front of your quilt to look good. Okay, so there's our half square triangles, and you can see that as we lay them on like this, then they start making that stripe. So then all you have to do after you've made your half square triangles, and the pattern tells you how much to make, how many to make, and your 4 patches, then you're going to sew it together in rows, and then sew your rows together. So you press the seam allowances on one row one way and the next row the other way, and so forth down the line, and then you have a quilt. Now I promised you to show you an alternative to cutting the 4 7/8. So I cut these squares at 5 inches, and then I'm going to use this ruler. This is by Block, and it has this little slot on the back that's to one side of the line that goes through the center. So you can take this and just line it up so that the slot is on the same side as my seam allowance right here. And you can line it up like that, and then you trim the sides, and then you can turn it around. Oops, have to turn the ruler around too. And line up to where you already trimmed it, and cut the other 2 sides. And it's a little bit more work, but you get a very accurate half square triangle. All right, thank you very much for watching. Be sure and click the like and the subscribe buttons, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.